continue supporting all of the students who remain virtual for this year. We're going to stay focused on those key mitigation strategies. I'm going to talk about vaccination in a minute, but vaccine, no vaccine, all of the health data is still, schools have to do those key mitigation strategies, social distancing, mask wearing, good hygiene. And we'll continue to move forward with that. So let me talk a little bit about vaccine. You know, that's been its own roller coaster. But at the bottom, when you step back, I've got to really thank Fairfax County Health Department and Inova. They've been great partners. We've been able to prioritize access for all of our FCPS staff. 80% registered. 18,000 employees have already received their first dose out of 25,000. And we surveyed staff of folks who, you know, the window is about to end for getting our staff in because they have other members of the community. They need to move on from 1B to other groups. So we're doing one final push to get anybody who did not even register with us. And we recognize some folks have personal, religious, cultural reasons for pausing on the vaccination. We've not required it at this time, but we've certainly encouraged it. And one more push to get as many vaccinated as possible. And the majority of our staff will have had both doses prior to returning to school in person. I can't say that was the design, and on all honesty, we certainly were aware of it. We were looking at it, but it wasn't a complete overlay, and we've had fits and starts. But again, as it is now, many of our teachers will have had both doses. And I want to just thank Inova has been amazing. Fairfax County Health Department, amazing. And I'm eager to see the vaccination process spread to other members of our community who need it as well. In fact, our entire community. I hope we're going to be this kind of support of 90% registering. I hope our whole community is that way and that we're one of the first communities to get herd immunity in the country. Our budget is moving forward. Again, it's a modest budget on our most pressing needs. The pandemic has had a true impact, of course, on us. Enrollment, our ability to do salaries, though I must say that compensation, while it's not in the budget, remains one of the issues of concern to the school board, to our state legislators, to the governor, and to our county. And we'll continue to look and see how we can move forward to try to recognize compensation for all of our staff who've gone above and beyond. But it's not there in my proposed budget at this point. And we have a lot of other people here tonight. Terry Edmonds Hurd, who's going to be here to talk to you about some community use. And she's also become an elementary playground expert, by the way. One of our executive principals in Region 4. And I believe, again, Vicki Gardner is with us, who also is here. I'm not going to go as long tonight so that those two can chat. And I'm going to take care of my fatherly dinner responsibilities. But I do want to take just a couple of minutes and maybe leave 15, 20 minutes for them, but a few minutes just to check the chat or take any questions.
Yes, Dr. Brabrand, we do have two questions. One is going to be answered later for community use, but the first one is about volunteerism in the schools. Parents would like to help with gaps and deficiencies in classroom monitoring and virtual classroom support. We've been told volunteer request forms are on hold per FCPS policy. We want to help. Can this be considered?
You know what? I will take that back. One thing I want to say, and I'm just making my pitch, where we're still the thinnest on monitors is grades 3 through 6, which is the last group to come in. And we need we need more monitors there. So I know volunteers is great and we can look at that, but we really would love people It's only going to be a couple of months to be monitors. Really continue to encourage all your PTAs to work with school principals to beat the bushes and ask people to become monitors. I'll look into the volunteer issue to see whether, again, the health department was not in favor of a very liberal volunteer policy, but maybe it's time to revisit it with where we are, and I will get back to you before the next meeting. We do have an extensive, by the way, we're going to follow all the health data. So if we have variants and the number of outbreaks go up, we will return to virtual. And we'll make that decision based on school outbreaks. So we'll monitor it. We're hopeful that we're going to be quicker to vaccination than many communities, but we're going to monitor all that health data. That model I talked about is going to be our model from here on out for the future of the pandemic. Yes, monitors can request a specific school. I'll look into the part-time monitoring issue. That's an interesting idea. And we are developing very robust plans for summer programs, bridge to kindergarten, bridge to first grade, some transition programs, extended summer opportunities, a fifth quarter for our upperclassmen that's summer school with a twist. So we're really going to have a lot of opportunities. We shared some concepts last month, and we're going to have more details as well. Our deputy superintendent, Dr. Ivy, is also here in the meeting to help with some of the questions that are coming up as well. So I think I've covered your questions, and I'll follow up on the volunteering and the idea of part-time or 2-for-1 monitors.
Dr. Brabrand, it looks like you have one more question about addressing racism and diversity issues.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback, and we're certainly not trying to take a backseat to equity. We've done, we've changed TJ after 40 years. We've added local level 4 to advanced academics. We're continuing to do professional development with our teachers on culturally responsive environments and instruction. And we have another cultural module that we're doing for all of our employees. So we are working to do more and more. We still have issues to do. And we know that that's going to continue. Yeah, the numbers for EAL and SPED are not good, and we are going to address that with extended, not just ESY for special ed over the summer, but an additional 30 days of learning beyond even ESY for all special ed kids. We're looking at targeted programs for English language learners, and we know that we're going to have some real catch up to do with them, not just the spring, the summer, but even into the fall. So I'm looking at 5 days for the fall. I don't have the plan yet. I'm going to work on a plan. That's what the board wants to know now that we just finished RTS for the hybrid. I want to get us to 5 days for the fall. I don't want to make a definitive statement yet, but I want to share that very soon, and I'm going to be working on plans to share with the community very soon. So you guys have a good day, but you're in great hands with the rest of our team, and we want to continue to partner with you all. And we have turned a corner. We are going to be back in our schools in person, and I do believe that the worst is behind us. We're still going to have some challenges, no doubt, especially meeting our kids and staff and their needs, but we're up to the challenge and we will do it. So thank you all.
Thank you for your time tonight, Dr. Brabrand.
Okay, I'll have my suit on next time.
Okay. All right, we are going to go ahead and switch gears. We know that one of the many ways that local PTAs lift their community is to provide after-school opportunities and programs to our students. We also know that kids who are involved in after-school clubs perform better academically, as well as see a reduced absenteeism rate. We also know that many of our PTAs have had this very strong desire to offer after-school opportunities. So tonight, I'm happy to share that we have some representation from SCPS. They have been absolutely wonderful, fantastic collaborative partners, and we're going to hear some updates. So with us tonight, we have Frances Ivy, our Deputy Superintendent. We have Region 4 Executive Principal Terry Edmonds-Hurd, and we have our FCPS Community Use and Facilities Coordinator, Vicki Gardner. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you three. Thank you.
Sure. So good evening, everybody, and we're thrilled to be here. We certainly know how important these after-school activities and activities in general are for our students, and we have wanted to offer these as soon as we felt it was safe and that we would be able to coordinate it and also just make sure that we'd have all the things in place that are needed. And so we've heard from you loud and clear from the PTAs that you're ready to support and partner with your independent contractors to offer some after-school activities. And we feel that we definitely can do so for outdoor activities. One of the ones that many of you have asked for was Girls on the Run. And so we're talking about that or any other ones as well, but and they would have to be outdoors at this point. So I cannot say enough about Vicki Gardner and Terry Edmonds-Hurd, who really have worked tirelessly to work with principals and other departments to set up some guidelines. And so we're now ready to move into phase 2 of opening up activities, which we're thrilled because it does then provide a start of activities after school for elementary students. So I don't know if Terry or Vicki, if you all want to go first or which one.
So I'll start first. Good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for having us here to talk about community use. We know this has been a big thing that you all have been wanting to explore and talk more about. So Vicki and I are here to talk with you about the guidelines that we have been discussing with the leadership team and that we've put in place. So what I'm going to start with is just sharing with you where we've been with community use since last year. As you know, in March of 2020, we went into this closing of schools with the pandemic. And at that time, all of our community use was shut down, which Vicki can definitely share with you because that's quite a process to have shut down. It was a major endeavor to shut down that system. And now we're in the process of bringing it back up. So in the fall of 2020, we opened up phase 1, which consisted of 3 groups. And I know that you all are familiar with those because you've talked about these activities that have been going on, on our grounds and in our buildings. So the first group that we've had back would be any of those activities that our principals wanted to sponsor in their building. Of course, they still had to be small. We still had to follow CDC guidelines and all of that as well. The second group would have been our PTAs, PTSOs, booster clubs, booster associations, again, with small numbers, and those had to be outside as well. But during that time, independent contractors were not allowed. And then the third group that we've had accessing our facilities or our community use would be Fairfax Government Association or agency groups. So that would be our SRS that's had like the childcare that's been in our building, the Neighborhood and Community Services, NCS, the Fairfax County Park Association, Park Authority, and the Fairfax County Health Department. So those groups have been accessing community use as well. In the fall, those bigger groups such as the Park Authority and NCS were outside. And then in January, people have expressed thoughts about them being inside of their building because they've been on the inside of our building too as well, using our gym and those sorts of things. So over the last several weeks, Vicki and I, along with our leadership team, along with Dr. Ivy and Dr. Brabrand, we've been trying to discuss what we can do to open up phase 2, which would be to group 4. Vicki will be covering group 4 and discuss the required processes and procedures for community use. Our number one priority, of course, with opening up more access is the safety of our students, not just safety of students, but also of parent groups and of our community, those who start to access those areas. Vicki's going to talk about Executive Order number 72, which was put down in December by the governor and it places a restriction on the number of participants. So when we talk about small numbers, we know the drill on this at this point, where we talk about with the pandemic that we've got to associate that with small numbers of people gathering. So she's going to talk about that. Over the last couple of weeks, we've worked with the legal department to make sure that we were interpreting the executive order correctly. So that's part of the processes that we've been going through over the last couple of weeks. We also put some additional safety measures in place that Vicki will talk about in regards to the supervision of children by having 2 supervisors assigned. Approval and continuance of all programs will be required by the principal as well as the regional assistant superintendent. And those are procedures that we've had in place since phase 1 as well. Of course, there are also all of the FCPS and the CDC requirements that are in full effect too as well. So all of these measures we put in place to make sure that our students are, of course, enjoying the events that they're participating in, but also that they're fully supervised during this time. We'll continue, Vicki and myself and Dr. Ivy and Dr. Brabrand, we are continuing to review the procedures that we have in place for community use to see of whatever changes that we need to make as well. So that's all I have. I'm going to turn it over to Vicki.
Well, thank you, Terry. I appreciate it. First, I want to thank Tara for inviting us to be here. I always enjoy as being with community use, reaching out and talking to our PTAs. And while I have you, I'd also like to thank you for all that you do for our students, our teachers, our schools, and our communities. And as being the coordinator of community use, I see this firsthand, and I see the rewards and I see the efforts that you put in. So thank you. So at least I had the opportunity to do that in Mass, so I appreciate that. Around what Terry has said is, yes, we've been working on group 4 from phase 2, because we heard you around, you want after school activities and you want the PTA activities. So we've worked out as of today, we finalized it today, and I'm going to go through a lot of material, but fear not, I will be sending this to Tara around and she can distribute it out to everyone. Around again, this was just finalized today with some wordsmithing here or there, you know, but it's, I do think that it's something that we can wrap our arms around, that we can, you know, really engage in, and it will be a safe environment for everyone to enjoy. Around, so there's 5 steps. Around the first step, and before I get into that, I will address your EO 72 that you spoke of. The executive order from the governor, which came out on December 11th, around the executive order 72 did pare back, and he has extended, the governor has extended this until the end of February, the groupings from 25 to 10. So we had legal review of that number. Did the PTA events with the third party volunteer Fairfax County off contract staff managers, employees, or third party independent contractors, where did they fall into the scale around of, are they school-based, are they not? And what the legal has determined was that that is considered a social gathering. So since it is considered a social gathering, the number would be 10 around as far as the maximum capacity. And this would include the individuals that are managing the program. So the owner, the operator of the program would be part of the 10. Around,
So Vicki,
yes,
can
ma'am.
I just interrupt you or clarify though, that if a group, and I'm just going to use Girls on the Run, for example, if they had a group of 20 and in discussing it with the principal and the facility was, you know, large, and they could have one group of 10 going in one direction and another group of 10 going in another. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Dr. Ivy, and I was just getting there and you stole my
Okay.
thunder.
I'll stop then. I'll let you.
But that's okay. It's okay. This is a team effort. Around no, and the even though they're 10, since we're outside, there can be multiple groups of 10, depending on the space allotment that the PTA group just and with the principal decides how many groups can safely, with distance and all the safety precautions, be on the property and on the grounds, and we still can maintain all the COVID requirements. So there could be one group of 10 on a field, one group of 10 on a parking lot, you know, and there could be multiple. groups. So again, fear not, I will be sending this to Tara and she will be sending out. So I'm going to go through the 5 steps around of what this will look like for this process. The first step is have a discussion with your principal around just sit down and just decide with your principal as to what spaces would be usable and how you could do that. Around some schools are maybe smaller than other schools. Some schools, might be able to accommodate 3 groups on Monday, 3 groups on Tuesday, and you have Monday through Friday. And the time frame for this is from the last bell until 5:30 in the afternoon. So essentially, if you want to be creative in scheduling, you could have one group come in, right after the bell till 4 o'clock, and then you could have a second phase of that. So there's plenty of opportunities that you could look at for your outdoor activities. So some of the discussions, and if you don't mind, I'm going to read my notes. Some of the discussions that you'll be having is that it's only outdoors, no indoors around, and that's a discussion you need to have with your principal around. And you need to follow the CDC guidelines, and those are wearing a mask, 6 feet distance. Those are critical at this time. Even though we have the vaccine coming, we still have to follow all the guidelines around. And phase 2, we'll be going into the principal. Sorry, I'm reading this. Oh, Terry hinted on this, so I'm going to go into a little bit more details. We're requiring 2 adults to be associated with the groups. Now, the second adult could be a PTA volunteer or a parent volunteer that monitors all of the groups around and make sure that they are around with the one person there. So as long as we have 2 adults, now the reason for that is, as we all know, with elementary kids, there could be something that happens and we need another adult around, because we cannot have the group leader, if there's only one, leave the rest of the group. A child can never be unattended at any time. So that's one of the requirements that we have. So again, the time frame is from the last bell to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if you and the principal can, and there might be some schools where the PTA is just not ready for this yet, and that's okay. If they're not ready to implement this, or do not have any organizations that want to stay outside, we will be opening up further as time and conditions permit. So maybe you're not ready for the first phase, and maybe you're ready for the next phase and you want to wait. That's okay. So the second step is the support organization will discuss with the program operator, which could be one of 3 different categories. It could be a volunteer operator. It could be an FCPS off-contract staff person that wants to run a program. I know a lot of our schools had the gym teacher would have a sports camp or something like that. They would offer that. The third part is the third-party contractor. So you need to discuss what, with the parameters that you've determined with your principal, as in what space is allotted, how much you can offer, what type of events you can offer around. Then you're going to reach out to the program, to the program operator, which is one of those 3 categories. And when you decide to reach out to them, and before you make a final decision with that, you need to have the program operator contact community use. And we need to make sure that they have the proper paperwork in. At this point, none of the independent contractors, third-party contractors, have any of the required paperwork. Everything is lapsed. Since we've been closed for virtually almost a year, we have no current certificate of insurance. We do not have anyone that has the current FS 188, which is the FCPS legally required form for them to sign, nor do we have any of the independent contractor personnels that had badges prior from HR issued to FS or HR, FCPS HR, which is the fingerprint and background check. There's no one valid now. If they had a badge, it is now voided because there's been a lapse of over 6 months in coverage. So if you have an independent contractor, they're going to have to go through the process again through HR. Now, good news is We've worked out a very simplistic process now with HR. They now will have everything online. COVID has been great for some things around. So they're going to have everything online, and it'll be through their onboard process of FCPS around. So if we do have a fingerprint on file, they'll be able to use that instead of having to come in. So the only time that they would have to come in essentially would be to pick up their badge, or potentially we could send the badge to the host school. So that's one of the requirements. So you do need to have a conversation with the operator to see where they are in the process and to allow enough time for us to bring them up to where they are approved and they're able to actually hold events in FCPS schools. Again, you will have all this, so I am kind of speeding through it a little bit. Sorry about that. The third stage is the independent contractor would contact us, and I have a independent contractor packet ready to go around that we will immediately send out to the independent contractor, giving them all the rules. Number one, FCPS rules for COVID, which we follow the CDC rules and the VHSL rules. They will have a copy of that. They're going to have a copy of our regulations, 8420, which tells how to use the schools and who's permitted to use the schools. And more importantly, 8424, which is specifically for the PTA after school programs. So I don't believe in the past we have uniformly given them a packet so they can register and be well informed and aware of what their expectations are. We've readied that, we fixed that problem. So when they contact us, we will work exponentially to get them all legal and processed and good to go. Around HR is working with us, and they have given us estimate that if we were to get someone on Monday, more than likely, we would be able to get them the initial email for onboarding by Tuesday or Wednesday, with maybe a completion by Friday. So we're working very, very quickly with this. The fourth step would be finalizing the schedule. So after you have an approved contractor, you've talked to your principal, and they've said, yes, you can have 2 groups, and you've talked now to the provider, and they said, okay, we have this. And they've talked to us, to community use, and we've gotten everything all clear. Now it's just a matter of organizing your schedules. So we've really made it very simplistic as to and fill out your ADM 24. Everyone knows the ADM 24. It's a dreaded piece of paper that you have to send to me, but we require it. We're going to do it all electronically now. So you can email it. Our office will email back a finalized copy to you and to the school. And we're going to attach it to the schedules. All the schedules for the PTA after school programs will now be required to be an FS Direct. Before it was not and that became a big safety issue because we could not discern exactly what was in our schools at any time. I'm sorry to say that, but that was the case, but we're fixing it. So the schools will be entering in the schedules, and with the schedules, we will upload all appropriate and all attached documentation with those schedules. So we're going to have a one-place review if we have a situation that we can go and look at all the information related to that after-school program. Again, the highlights has to be outside. Talk to your principal, figure out what space is appropriate, what's necessary for you to have those events. Then talk to the vendor and make sure that they have registered to become an approved vendor, and we get those processes done, which we can do fairly quickly. And then finalize your schedules and advertise them out and finish up your ADM 24. So I'm going to open it up, which I'm sure you will. Have a lot of questions, but
we do. We have some community use questions, but we also have other questions in the chat as well. So
Okay.
I'm just going to go in order. So this one's probably not for you, Vicki. This one's probably for Dr. Ivy. Will children and families on free and reduced lunch that attend school in person have an opportunity to bring food home for the days that they are virtual?
Say that one more time,
When
please.
yes, of course. When we move to hybrid and our kids are in school 2 days a week, if a child is on free or reduced lunch is there an opportunity for them to bring food home on days that they are virtual?
I would imagine so. I would want to check on that, but I would think we would want to make sure that if the student qualified, that they were fed.
Okay,
Miss
kind of-
Terry, do you?
I was saying, I would think the same thing too as well. We've seen a lot of food service questions. I can definitely check on that in our operationals group and get an answer back to Kiara.
thank you.
Okay, but I'm pretty sure we would. If we've done all kinds of things to ensure that students were fed throughout the pandemic. And
Yes, it has
Right.
been a priority. We
Right.
definitely see that.
Mhm.
Okay, will this community use language be posted on the website so that we can review?
Yes, eventually we will put it on the community use website. Probably not until next week round, but you will have it. You will have it. I will send it to you tomorrow. So you will have all the information that I went over.
Wonderful. As soon as we get it, I will give it to our communications person to put on our website as well. So,
Absolutely. Okay.
okay. And thank you for your support of PTAs. Okay, to clarify, if there are multiple groups, can one adult float between groups, or do we need to have 2 adults to be with each group full time?
Depends. If you have the groups in a similar area, I could see where one adult floating between the 2 groups would work. But if you have the groups on one side of the parking lot and the field is way over here and they are not in close proximity, I think then you would have to have 2.
What if you had walkie-talkies and you could say, hey, I need you?
Dr. Ivy.
Yes, that would be fine.
Yes.
Okay. This one is random, nothing to do with community use. When will the school board vote on the calendar?
I think Miss Omesh is here tonight. I don't know. I don't think they
Yeah.
have. Do you want to speak to that, Miss Omesh?
Sure. I had just asked our chair about this yesterday. So the date has not been set yet. I know folks are frustrated. I am myself about the discussion and where we might be headed. But basically, based on my understanding, is the chair did decide today, so that's going to be posted soon. My guess would be in about 2 weeks, because we normally would do the vote in our Thursday meeting. It's not going to be this week, so we would wait another 2 weeks for that. So
Thank you. Okay, for late start elementary schools, can these activities take place prior to the start of the school day?
We have not discussed that the prior, probably because it's cold for the most part. But that has not been part of our discussions. But if they were to meet the parameters, and Dr. Ivy, please jump in if I misspeak. If they were to meet the parameters that we're setting for after school, because I do know a lot of the programs inside, there was a lot of foreign language programs that used to be inside before school. But I could see potentially a running group wanting to run prior to school. So Dr. Ivy, I'm going to defer to you.
Yeah, I think we would want to explore that, and if it could be agreed upon with the principal, I don't see where it would be a problem. Terry, what do you think?
The only thing that comes to mind right now is as we are starting to ramp up and groups are starting to come in, I know that our principals will be working on those arrival procedures for students in the morning. So it could get a little hairy. So I just think that discussion at the beginning with the principal so that they can problem solve and think through that would be really, really crucial.
Yeah, I think that reinforces the step 1 where you have the conversation with the principal, and if you know that you have a group that is interested in a preschool, not preschool, but a pre-bell, event in the mornings, then have those discussions. At some schools it might be feasible, at other schools it won't be, but that's a decision. And there was a step 2 that I didn't discuss. The principal will also be working in conjunction with the regional area superintendent. So it's not going to be a singular decision just from the principal. They will confer with the regional, we call them RAS, regional area superintendent, for some guidance and some other clarifications if needed. So that's definitely a step one, have that discussion, but functionally, I don't see any issues whatsoever with that if it's agreed upon and is something that the school can manage.
Your questions are good
I
because
know, I like
we try to think of, you know, everything and being as flexible as we can and what might be scenarios. And it's always good then to hear the additional questions and thoughts. So thank you for that.
I think we have a few more. Okay, so why are academic-based clubs sponsored by the PTA considered a social gathering? If these same academic clubs were sponsored by the school directly, would it still be a social gathering or would it be for academic purposes?
I'll touch on this very briefly, and I'm not a lawyer. We did go through a legal review with all considerations from our chief legal representative for Fairfax County Schools, and that was their determination. As a layperson, that was the school always has the right to have an activity that's school-based. The PTA is a sponsor program, but not directly FCPS around. So I think that was where we came to the determination, and we're going under legal guidance for that.
I wonder if there's an opportunity to further engage in conversation with legal, because I could see something like the Fall Fiesta. That's a social gathering. Spelling club, we're learning how to spell. Those are two very different things that are done by the PTA. So maybe it's worth kind of exploring this idea. Are there certain PTA type events that actually truly are academic in nature? And can we bump it up to the 25 participants for those things? And I understand you can't give me an answer today or probably next week, but can we continue that conversation?
Yes, absolutely. So if you want to reach out, we can set up, you know, a time to talk with division council.
Wonderful, thank you. The questions keep on coming. Does outdoor only mean no access to bathrooms? Or is that a
Oh,
principal
you
decision?
caught us. We've gone back and forth numerous times with this discussion. Again, I believe this is something that you need to have with your principal and decide where they stand on this and where they support this around, and make sure that they're aware around. That is a discussion that the PTA president, if the principal can accommodate and can see a feasible way. My concern is, and the reason, one, we're following guidelines outdoor only, which is what the guidelines have been stated around. But what if a discussion with the principal and understanding can be determined with the RAS approval around, that is entirely up to those discussions.
So Terry, can you talk about the discussions you had and the thoughts around that? So that's why it's also helpful to have that second person.
Right, absolutely. That was one of the reasons that we put the other additional supervisor in place too, because we know that will help to cut down on a number of children having to come into the building, because of course our custodians are having to clean those areas, giving double attention to those if other students are coming into them. We do have other programs such as our SRS that's in the building too as well. So as we took those things into consideration, we thought if you had a person who's able to escort a child into the building, as opposed to a whole group having to go in, because, you know, in elementary programs, we don't leave the children alone to go in by themselves. So that poses a problem. And that's why we proposed having that second person to help with the supervision. Our principals were, when we presented this to them, that was one of the major concerns that they had about students entering the building, them being able to end their day, move on to meetings, and not having other students to supervise or having other groups of students in the building, mainly because of the pandemic, not because they don't love the children and know that they're going to need to use the restroom. It's mainly just because of these other issues that we have because of the COVID mitigation strategies, all of those types of things that have to be taken into consideration. So I think, you know, Vicki and I, we discussed, and Dr. Ivy, we all discussed this quite a bit. That's why we thought that having that extra person there to escort children into the building, because other things happen too as well. There could be an accident with the student out there. You may need access to the building that might be unplanned totally. And so we wanted to take that into consideration, but that's why we thought that second person would be so crucial.
Awesome. I have a question that is not community use. Can PTAs request language interpretation services from FCPS for virtual meetings? And if so, how?
I would have to take that back and ask that question. I would hope that we could support. We do have language services, and if you're having, I would also, you said for virtual PTA meetings?
Yes.
Yes, well, I would think yes, I would think so, because you would just work with your principal, and the principal would be able to request that service.
Yes, I've done it in the past. When I was a principal, I've requested the services for PTA meetings in the past. I will check on it just to make sure that it still stands. But I would agree with Dr. Ivy on that as well.
Okay. All right. I am going to bypass this reflections question and answer that during our meeting. Are PTA or PTSA fundraisers permitted outdoors on school grounds?
That would probably fall underneath, because we had some of those last fall where we had some book drives and stuff. That would fall under the phase 1, group 2 grouping, as long as it's staffed by the PTA and in agreeance with and agreeable with the principal. I think that would fall under phase 1, group 2. So that's already been provided for. But the other the consideration would be space and obviously following CDC guidelines, etc.
All right. Will you update community use and PTA options for programming as we go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Going through. Are both virtual and hybrid students allowed to participate in all these activities? Do we need to be concerned about providing any virtual only activities for families who are concerned?
I believe now they are having virtual programming. So that's and which does not require them to go through community use. So that's a contract between the independent contractor and the parent, around with the PTA as a moderator, as the mediator for that. So I think that, since that is the format that the parents have to decide, if they wish to come. So if a child is virtual, they could come to the school after school and attend this outdoor activity if they wish. That's totally within the realm of the agreements that's the program serves.
Okay, it looks like we're done with our questions. You guys have like your last opportunity. If you have a question, ask it now. And if you can be polite, you can unmute yourself and ask it yourself.
And Kara, I have one other topic, if I could just mention briefly after we finish with community use.
I'm just getting thank yous. So I think you can go ahead and address your next topic.
Okay, so we have begun to actually discuss and pulled a small group together for which we will expand to talk about activities and ways in which we could celebrate the class of 2021, our seniors. And we have, we also are cognizant and want to make sure that activities are happening at every high school. And so some of the principals have gotten together and have decided that, and all of the principals agreed today that they're going to offer 2 activities a month. And there are other things that they may do, but so that it can be consistent across, all of our schools. So for the month of February, they're going to start on February 12th with an activity, and it's called Don't Stop Believing, after, the song. And what they're going to do is invite the seniors to come up to the school, following all the mitigation and measures, and have like an outdoor event in which they can pick up like, candy, because that's Valentine's weekend too. and there'll be some staff, and they're going to use the parking lot in order to space kids out. And they can come and it would be from 3:15 to 4:15. We have a student rep from every school that's going to plan what the activity will look like. And we have our assistant principals who are really working hard to plan from every high school. And the ask, they're going to be reaching out to the PTA to see if there's any kinds of candies or goodies that are pre-packaged and wrapped that you would be willing to help or to help in some other way. And so Dr. Brabrand's gonna, make an announcement and recognize seniors. That's one event this month. The other event is gonna be a video, and it's going to be to recognize the 100 days before graduation. So that'll be a different date for each high school. And they're going to do like a video that they can, and then we'll put it all together from every school. And so, and it'll be just recognizing and encouraging them and celebrating that, they're within 100 days, school days. So each month there will be something different. I know there's a lot of questions about graduation. We in some way would like to have an in-person graduation, but we don't know what that will look like or what the guidelines will be by then. But it may have to be outside, and we'll have to figure that out. But we really are wanting to make sure, if at all possible, have a graduation in a more traditional sense than what we were able to do last year. So I just wanted to put in a plug for the first event on February 12th, and the schools will be reaching out to each of the PTAs to see if there's anything you can do to help support it. And so
That's
with that-
wonderful. Thank you. I had one more question come through that I'm hoping I can ask. A follow-up to the language interpretation services. What if it's not a school? SEPTA, our special education PTA, they don't have a principal that they can ask for help. So if they wanted to get language interpretation services, where can we send them?
I'm not sure who you would reach out to, but Kara, let me find out.
Okay.
I can do some
And
checking on it, Dr. Ivy.
pardon me,
I'll do some checking on it to find out
Okay.
who they would reach
Be-
out to.
because I totally understand the ask, and that you really want to have as many parents that can come, and you want to be able to interpret and speak in the language, for which they speak. And however we can work together, I would love to see that happen. I'm just not sure how to as to how to go about it, but I'll do everything I can to advocate for it. Because
you.
the more involvement we can have from all of our parents, the stronger we will be. And we know that we can't do it without you. And so we'll find out.
Thank you. Well,
Dr. Ivy? I'm sorry, on that same thing, before we go off it, about 3 meetings ago, Dr. Brabrand mentioned, and he touted a service that FCPS was using to translate documents that the administration and teachers were able to use. I immediately logged onto it, and it was, you had to have an fcps.edu email address to use it. So, I mean, we're getting a lot of these needs, especially now that we're virtual. So to either translate verbally, real time, or to translate the written document to our families, we're seeing this across the board. So I'd like to lump that on with the other question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I am familiar with that service. And so let me see what we can do, because I'm just thrilled that, that you're wanting to do that and wanting to do everything you can to include, all of your families. So we'll definitely get back to you. So Kara, I think we need to set up a follow-up conversation or meeting. And we're
yes,
happy
we
to
do.
that.
Thank you. We had one final question. I'm sorry, come through on Facebook. They really like your idea for the high school graduation. Can we take this idea and, or not, the celebrations leading up to the 100 days? Can we take this idea and maybe apply it to our 6th graders or 8th graders and give them
So-
some kind of honorary kickoff?
I don't see why not. You know, it's just celebrating the culmination of their year.
Okay, so if my middle school and yeah, middle school PTAs, if you're on, go talk to your principal, see if we can do something for them too.
Yeah, we're just getting started and we just talked to the high school principals and it came with them. So we'll have to do some talking with middle school and elementary school. And again, you know, we know that these are the kinds of, you know, activities that kids need and want and miss. And, you know, we would love to do it for everyone and we would love to do much more. And we're hoping that, you know, as students come back and we'll be able, we can't wait to, you know, to have them back in our buildings and for those that want to come in and are comfortable coming in and to embrace them in every way.
Thank you so much for your time tonight. You have answered so many of our leaders' questions. I know that they really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being here. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night.
Thank you very much.
And we'll
Hope
see you
you will.
soon.
All right,
Bye.
thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Okay, friends, we have one last special guest speaker tonight. Please welcome and please help me welcome our FCPS Director of Communication and Community Relations, Lucy Caldwell. Lucy, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. It's really, really nice to be here, and it's been a long day, been a long week, but I think it's really nice to be able to take your questions directly and hear from parents. First, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, then I'll tell you a little bit about OCCR, the office where I work. And then I'll talk to you a little bit about sort of a day in the life of what we're doing. And then we'll end up with the podcast and any questions you have about that or ideas, input on other products you'd like to see coming from the division overall. So my name's Lucy Caldwell. I grew up in Alexandria. I was a TC Titan and moved here to Fairfax County after college, attending college in Colorado, University of Colorado, and then joined the Fairfax, actually the Virginia State Police, and was their spokesperson from my early 20s for about 15 years. And so it was there that I really was handling the crisis communications. And for about the top half of the state, my office was over on Braddock Road, not too far from my home. I had no experience in law enforcement at all or police other than having been a victim of crime a couple times in my teenage years in Alexandria, getting robbed at gunpoint at Baskin-Robbins when I was 14 years old. So I really didn't have a lot of experience in that or working around police, but did that for a while. And then after 9/11 came, I'm sure that was a change for a lot of us. And I was at the Pentagon that day because we had troopers run into the Pentagon. And so there was a media response and worked with the governor and his team at that time. And, you know, sort of everybody has that moment when they think, what's next? And I've been jumping guardrails for a long time to meet the media and handle on-site communications with media. So I went to, believe it or not, pandemic flu planning. The CDC, after 9/11, had allocated a lot of funding to the state health department. So I stayed with the state, but worked in the local Fairfax County Health Department for 5 years. And it was about pandemic flu planning, bioterrorism preparedness. But I kind of thought to myself, this is never going to happen. So here we are. But after that, 5 years, the local Fairfax County Police Department had created a role for public relations and communications. And they knew I had a lot of experience with the state police. So I made the jump from the state to the county, and spent 8 years there. It was during that time, my sons both were Fairfax County Public Schools. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the things that happened around the mid-90s, actually mid-2000s, early 2000s at W.T. Woodson. And my son's best friend took his life, and he was a Woodson sophomore. And it was that episode, I was at the police department then, and trying to assist my son, assist his friends, assist the teachers. And I was a mom. I was not, I worked at the police department, but I was a mom, and nothing such as that had ever happened in our lives. But that was definitely a turning point in my life. And I knew I had to do more to help young people. And a friend of mine who sort of knew everything that was going on, that was happening about a year after this happened, she was retiring from her job as the communications director of the Fairfax Falls Church Community Services Board. And if any of you have ever heard of the CSB, it's the arm of Fairfax County government that works on substance use disorder, suicide prevention, mental health, as well as helped start the Welcome Inclusion Network. And that was for parents and caregivers of people with developmental or intellectual disability. And absolutely one of the top things that I've ever gotten to be involved with to really support parents of students who, after they're age 18, but before they're 22, when they leave Fairfax County Public Schools, what are the systems, what are the programs that the county and the state can work together to provide resources for those parents and families and caregivers. So it's a really wonderful place to work, and it truly was a passion. But I don't know how many of you knew John Torrey. I met John Torrey, who was the director of this office during my years as working with police. And he was promoted, and he said, Lucy, you need to come over to Fairfax County Public Schools. So I probably never would have gone anywhere because I loved the CSB. But there was something in his voice that I said, you know what? And I started sort of putting everything together with the experiences that I'd had in mental health and working with young people. And it really was my passion. And everything that had happened at Woodson and the wonderful staff there, and just seeing that need where maybe I can make a difference. And so it was sort of with that naive look that I came to Fairfax County Public Schools about 1.5 years ago now. And about 3 months after I was here, the pandemic hit, and life here in this office very much changed. And it became almost, I guess you could say a crisis about every day, at least a crisis in communications. And so it really has been challenging, but rewarding to be a part of, as Dr. Brabrand said earlier, here we are, we're getting ready to start trickling back to in-person instruction. So that's sort of a little bit about me. And then I'll tell you just a little bit, I thought you might appreciate a day in the life of sort of this office and what we do here in communications. And then I'll go on to the podcast and take any questions you have. So this week has been pretty much about vaccine. And we have developed a survey for our staff to see who still needs the vaccine. Because as you know, all Fairfax County Public School staff, and that includes subs and monitors and everybody else, is eligible to receive vaccination. And it's not the full piece of the plan, but it's a part of the plan to help our staff and students come back safely into the schools and centers in FCPS. So it was absolutely a priority to try to see anything we could do to clearly communicate with our staff, and frequent communications as well, to try to make sure that everybody was getting the links that they needed to sign up to get their, go ahead and get their vaccine in our partnership with Inova and with Fairfax County Health Department. So it has been a journey, but we're about there. We've done really well. Initially, we had, as I'm sure you've heard Dr. Brabrand say, 20,000 people sign up. Well, we have even more. So they're going and going and going. And pretty sure I'll have some numbers for you very soon on how many were able to receive the vaccine. There are a lot of changes coming. I believe this week there's going to be an emphasis moving on from the educators and the 1B. They're going to check that box and they're going to move it on to the 75 and older range. And there's a lot of pressure to, of course, have all of those folks vaccinated as well. So I know that the county and the health department and the Virginia Department of Health are receiving a lot of pressures from all different areas to get people vaccinated. We're very fortunate that we were able to vaccinate our staff. Another thing that happened this week was snow. And in this office, we are on the snow calls. And so we know what's happening. This year, of course, it's been a bit different when making the snow calls because most of the students are virtual, and it is felt by many that they do not want to sacrifice any sort of opportunity to learn. And so if you're wondering why there aren't snow days, is, you know, everybody just runs around and goes out and plays in the snow, that's really the reason why. And we've had questions about that, and that was a decision that was made. This week, we've also, as you know, and Dr. Brabrand said, is their return to school. Really, we're trying to ramp up our communications, dust off the information. It's the family guide. We had to make updates to that. We've got video that we're updating. We have town halls that all of the, or most, I believe, of the 200 schools will be having family and community town halls. And so we help provide information for those town halls to make sure that it's consistent across the board for each school. So our office has helped with that quite a bit. Of course, we're still, as you know, we have over 600 classroom monitors hired, and we need 204 more as of today. So we're working on recruitment strategies to find those additional monitors so that of those teachers and instructional staff that will be teaching virtually from home, we'll have somebody in the classroom who has the knowledge, skills, and ability to be with your children in that classroom. Of course, you know, this is really important to remind everybody about the new Bell schedule. That new Bell schedule goes into effect on February 16th when the students start coming back in person. So as you can tell, there are a lot of things that this office is, it's a moving target with how we communicate and where we communicate. And I'll move on real quickly to where we communicate and how. Most of you are familiar with newsletters. So the newsletters go out from the schools, sometimes from the classes themselves. As you know, every Monday we have a newsletter that's for all families, and we try to make sure we have timely, relevant, actionable information in that. And we send them out over News You Choose. There's also, for more urgent and essential information, e-Notify. And that will go out not only on the website, it'll go out in all languages, and it'll go out via text. And we send many of the food messages that way, as well as Dr. Brabrand's communication. And you probably got one today about yesterday's return to school decisions. We also communicate quite often through video. I mentioned the newsletters, social media. The social media, you may have noticed, has been highly volatile, I'll say, in the past several months. So sometimes we'll make a post, you know, it's something just very innocuous about something that's happening as a way of sharing information. And then it will turn into sort of an argument between people who don't want to go back to school and people in person and people who do want to go back. So it's been challenging to try to balance and, you know, really urge that people be kind to each other during these tough times, because it has been tough. It's been tough on us. It's been tough on you. It's been tough on the students, and there's no getting around that. It truly has been tough. Another way we're getting information out, and this is new to FCPS, really, is our superintendent. And we've tried to hold those in times where something's happened and we need to communicate. We want to hear back from people. We want to have that two-way communication. And so those town halls are one way that we've decided to develop that. some of the ways we support the programs and our schools are through the letters. We respond to incidents, things that happen even in the virtual world. We are responding and supporting our principals with the letters that you receive in your email or however you might be getting them through your schools, whatever way they principals decide to share that. And so we support those with resources and of course with empathy. You have to lead with empathy. People have to know that you care before they care what you know. And so I'm always trying to remember that we're talking with parents, we're talking with families, and there's nothing more precious than people's children. And I think my experience and my background, having been through some of the things that I have, really sort of try to, sometimes I'm the bad guy in the chat box, and I put those messages in there and try to remember where people are coming from, how they're hearing us. And I do that, as a professional as well as a mom. Also in our office, we have Freedom of Information Act requests. They all come through this office. Some of you may have heard of Brandy Dempsey. She was our former person and she left. And now we're very excited to have Molly Shannon. And she came over from Fairfax County, just like me. So we're very happy to have her here. And then the other thing I'll just add is about the podcast. So the Healthy Minds podcast is something that I was hearing and seeing and sort of, I'm always looking for the gaps. What more do we need to be doing as a system? And Healthy Minds was a program that was a partnership between Fairfax County as well as FCPS. And it was really an honor to be a part of that communications team. We developed the website when I was with the county. We developed we developed the logo. I don't know if you've seen the logo. We've developed programs and really trying to push out with some of you on this call, on this chat, like Jenna White. We worked closely with her on some of this material. And it was really an honor to be able to do that. So when I saw some of the needs here, I said, you know what, a podcast is something where we can help highlight the resources that we have here in Fairfax County Public Schools, and also to put a face behind some of the titles that people have. I think, once you get to know somebody, then you say, oh, that's where this budget is going towards. Oh, that's what you mean by social emotional learning. Sometimes we use terms, and I'm really trying to sort of just bring it to a level where parents, any parent can hear a podcast or watch a video and understand, oh, that's what that means. Oh, I didn't even know those resources were available for my student. And so really that's the purpose behind the podcast. And if you haven't listened, I try to be, Terry Gross Fair Share is my, I just love her. So I really try to, channel my inner Terry Gross when I'm doing this, because I really want to, it's not about me. It's not about, what I know. I'm trying to pull out the guest and really try to have them just be human and be human about things. We've done some things with collaboration with Fairfax County. We talked about the youth survey, digital citizenship, substance use prevention. And that's a subject very near and dear to me. Real quick before we open it up to questions is when I was at the CSB, there was one of the tasks and responsibilities of the CSB is to treat people who had opiate and heroin use disorders. And in trying to do that, I was trying to show the public in the ways we highlighted in the programs, we highlighted our services, that this can be anyone. This can happen to you. And so what I was trying to do was sort of take the stigma away from substance use, and specifically the heroin and opiate problem, and do interviews with people who were in treatment. And it was really rewarding because I sat through it. One day I did 8 interviews in a row and sat through, I had a list of about 5 questions and trying to humanize people who had substance use disorder. And every single one of them told me, I said, how did this start? first of all, I chose the ones who were about in their 20s and were still young, but were serious enough in their addiction and substance use disorder that they needed to seek help. And they were, pretty much the last straw. They needed help or they would have probably lost their lives. Every single one of them had been through FCPS. Every single one of them began not with heroin and not with pills, but with beers in the basements of their friends and colleagues in Fairfax County, and maybe some pot on the side. Every single one of them. So while I don't say automatically that underage use is an automatic way of going straight to heroin or other serious, very, very serious drugs that are highly addictive, I do say that the people who do use all started there. So, and we've seen it, and the data shows that too. So I like to share that whenever I have an opportunity to remember, in our own families, to be talking about it. And I use the podcast as a way to talk about it. And that, it's okay to talk about. And once you do talk about these kinds of things and talk about, and maybe you'll hear an idea from a professional. I know I've learned a lot just in the few months I've been doing the podcast. And I learned a lot from our own staff. And I hope that the listeners do too. So I'll just keep talking forever if you let me. I'm a communications person, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask any questions for now.
We do have a few questions in the chat for you. The first thing though is somebody just basically saying thank you. You've probably been the recipient of some of the frustration that is within our county, and just wanted to remind you that we need you and we are appreciative of everything that you do. So thank you. A couple of questions. Where can we find the new bell schedule? Because it wasn't linked in the email today.
Should have been. I can send it to you. It is on the website though.
Okay.
Put it in the chat, Lucy.
I'm sorry?
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have a question on vaccination. So my FCPS scheduled vaccination was canceled on January 26th, and I signed up again through the FCPS vaccine survey this week. Any timeline of when the 12,000 of us signing up through the survey might be scheduled for appointments?
Honestly, from my understanding, from what I'm hearing from Inova in our everyday texts and phone calls, is that you should be getting that link to sign up. People who some of them the other day, they were switching over to a new system, and they said that some people got cancellations. And then I was told, share this with all the principals, that they should still go to that appointment and that cancellation was wrong. So it's a bit confusing. There's no question about that. But you will get that information. And if you had an appointment originally, go to that one.
Okay. We've all seen news articles about how we'll need to transition our pets when we return to life outside our homes again. Does FCPS plan to offer tips for parents to help prepare their children for hybrid learning? Or is that something that the Parent Resource Center would do?
That's a really good point. I think it's kind of a combination. Basically, as I said a few minutes ago, we're dusting off the information that we put out back in October when people started coming back in person. And I think the concurrent learning and the hybrid learning is definitely something that we will continue to look for ways to highlight that, whether it's video, whether it's in the newsletter, maybe more town halls. We will be looking for other ways to get that information out before February 16th. And I work with the media every day, so I've got several media that will be doing some stories on it. And we're always looking for ways, that are unique and interesting to highlight our staff and our students, and novel ways that our teachers are teaching. You probably saw the story about the treehouse teacher.
Yes.
Did you see it? Yeah, that was a good one. And then we had the other teacher last week that was part of the experience on Capitol Hill. And so he had come and he was serving in the National Guard and teaching music from Capitol Hill where he was working. So I love to highlight just our amazing teachers and everything they're doing. It's been really, really rewarding to be in this position and be able to do that.
Question from Facebook Live. Is it possible for more of FCPS's communications, such as tweets from psych services, Healthy Minds, to be more inclusive of students with disabilities? For example, I often see mindfulness suggestions for breathing exercise made on official FCPS accounts, but those can be inaccessible for students with disabilities that cannot voluntarily control their breath.
That's a really good point. Whoever put that in, please send me an email and with some suggestions, because absolutely, I love that idea and I love that thought. And we would be happy to do that.
Thank you. Would you be willing to come and speak at a PTSA meeting about the dangers of substance abuse? And if so, how can I reach you?
Well, I could do it, but I'd love to be able to get one of the experts from CSB. I still really good friends with a lot of them. And even tomorrow on our podcast, I have the taping tomorrow, and we'll be covering a little bit of that, and I will make sure we cover that issue. So listen, next Monday, that's when we usually post it in the newsletter. But absolutely, definitely send me a note about that, and I will get you what you need for your schools.
Do we have any final questions for Lucy? I think we're good. Thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for everything you're doing and for getting your kids ready to come back in person.
Yay.
Very excited.
All right. Well, thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Okay, friends, it is 7:49. Oh my gosh, can you tell I was a preschool teacher? I just called everybody friends. All right, PTA friends, it is 7:49. I'm going to officially call the meeting to order. We've had a really packed schedule with a lot of information. I appreciate you sticking with us this long. This is really long. We're going to make our business portion of the meeting super short and sweet because I want to honor all of your commitments to time tonight. So we are just going to jump right in. Okay, if you don't know who I am, I'm Kara Jenkins. I'm president of Fairfax County Council PTA. Okay, let's move on. We are going to hear some advocacy and legislative updates. So I'd like to call LaGuardia Myers, our VP of Advocacy.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. There are a few Virginia PTA position statements that FCC PTA has voted to adopt with the recommendation that the local PTA units review and adopt for advocacy purposes. You can find these position statements on our website at fccpta.org. I'm going to talk about 3 position statements in particular. Position statement on restraint and seclusion. FCC PTA and SEPTA, along with other community groups, had been closely monitoring the FCPS restraint and seclusion discussion. In collaboration with Virginia PTA and the Nova District Advocacy Chair, FCC PTA and SEPTA created and adopted a position statement that banned seclusion, banned restraint, advocated to create a safe de-escalation space for students, provide a chain of intervention prior to restraints, data reporting and follow-up, and ways to address emotional needs post-restraint. The position statement was shared with Dr. Brabrand and Dr. Michelle Boyd and the FCPS School Board, urging them to act immediately in enacting these changes to the existing FCPS restraint and seclusion policy. The second position statement was on advancing equity and diversity. The PTA has a long-standing commitment to the principles of anti-racism and anti-discrimination. To that end, Virginia PTA and FCC PTA urged members and continues to urge members at all levels to monitor, support, and advocate for programs and policies that embrace diversity and inclusivity as strengths, and work to eliminate structural inequities and that limit equitable learning opportunities for all students. Finally, late in June of last year, we issued a position statement on return to school. FCC PTA is supportive of parent choice. And in alignment with Virginia PTA, we prioritize the health and welfare of our students, staff, and families, and we support phased reopening plans. Now, based on Dr. Brabrand and the school board's decisions most recently, we are moving in that direction in a responsible way. So whether your child is returning to in-person classroom learning or will continue to be virtual, we want to advocate to ensure that the critical needs of every child are met, such as in areas of social and emotional well-being, addressing food insecurity, resources for family engagement, greater support for distance learning, and bridging the digital divide. I just wanted to mention and highlight those 3 position statements. And again, you can find those on the website. I also want to mention upcoming is the Legislative Conference 2021, also known as LegCon 2021. Registration is now open for the conference. It will be held March 9th through the 11th. Please register by tomorrow, February 4th, to be automatically signed up to participate in Virtual Hill Day. At Virtual Hill Day, you will have an opportunity to meet with members of Congress, hear PTA advocacy success stories, and learn how to shape public policy on Capitol Hill, educational public policy. Again, please register by tomorrow, February 4th. The cost for registration is $50. That's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, LaGuardia. So as LaGuardia mentioned, these are 3 position statements that we, as our board, adopted, which basically means we support them. And we encourage you at your local PTAs to take a look at these position statements. And if you agree with them, to adopt them as well. One of the big questions that we get over and over and over again is, if schools are closed, why should I PTA? And this is why, because PTA goes beyond just a local school. When you join a PTA, you're joining a network. In Fairfax County, 40,000 strong. You know, in the state of Virginia, I can't even remember how many, but we are the world's largest and oldest child advocacy organization, and that hasn't stopped. Just because our school buildings have been closed, that advocacy has not stopped. Since she mentioned the restraint and seclusion position statement, I was going to give a huge shout out to SEPTA later. I know that we said that we partnered with SEPTA, but in reality, it was like SEPTA did 99% of the work and we did like 1. So SEPTA actually just was announced today. They won a national PTA award for this position statement on restraint and seclusion. And SEPTA, like, oh my gosh, we are so proud of you and congratulations. So yes, please go and adopt their position statement as well. And next up, we're going to hear some more advocacy updates with our NOVA District Advocacy Chair, Ms. Julie Shepard.
Thank you so much, Kara, and I really appreciate your report, LaGuardia, especially that big plug for joining us at LegCon. So I'm excited to have our NOVA advocacy team there. I'll be really brief, but those of you who follow Virginia know that General Assembly is in session, and our NOVA advocacy team has met with over 20 of our delegates and senators. So many of your council leaders and other PTA leaders across Fairfax, Arlington, and Alexandria joined in these meetings. So our Virginia PTA's 2021 General Assembly watch list bill list is up on the website along with our full legislative priorities. So I will drop that link in the chat when I'm done with my presentation, so you guys can go take a look at that. You're going to find that under our Take Action page. The biggest news in this space right now is bill crossover from the House to the Senate and vice versa is on Friday, and Budget Sunday is coming up as well. So our VP of Advocacy will be sending out a newsletter. If you are not getting newsletters from Virginia PTA, you can go on that website and put your information in and make sure that you're getting that. So today, the biggest bill with the biggest money ask that we've been following is our School Equity and Staffing Act. That is Senator McClellan's bill, SB 1257. And they did parse it out, and there are some amendments that are coming out of it. The whole big ask is not going through. But for those of you who've been following along with the Unified Mental Health Teams, which is our school counselors, they are putting in the 1 to 325 ratio. Hopefully that'll pass when it goes through. And then they also have the 2 to 1,000 for some of our other mental health support in the building. So that's it for me for tonight. Oh, one last thing. There's a General Assembly wrap up that our VP of Advocacy will be running, and I'll also put the link in the chat on how to sign up for all of that. So I hope you'll follow along with our advocacy work at the state level. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. And one last update on LegCon, and that is a reimbursable expense. If your PTA has a line item for training or conferences, the $50 is reimbursable. So please, please, please sign up. Okay, we are going to move on to our treasurer report. I believe Jamie is going to give us an update on our finances, and we have a small budget amendment to propose.
Good evening, everyone. So our beginning balance was $28,609.31, and our ending balance was $32,377.06. Our only expenditure this month was for Constant Contact. Everything else was in the form of deposits. We have currently collected dues from 127 PTAs and PTSAs of 154 in Fairfax County, which is great news. We are still working with the final 27 local units to collect their dues. So if they are listening tonight, please feel free to email me. I will help you through it. I will put my email in the chat. And then our final thing is that we were really lucky to get an NAACP grant for $3,000 so that we could award 6 $500 grants to Children for Technology. And the amendment that we are making to our budget this evening, hopefully with your approval, is that we were awarded an additional $3,000 from the NAACP to give an additional 6 $500 grants to our amazing kids in Fairfax County. So that is the report.
Are there any objections to the amendment? To be clear, we received an additional $3,000 grant from NAACP with the stipulation that we continue to give that to our kids. So instead of offering 6 scholarships, we were able to offer 12. So are there any objections to this budget amendment?
I move the budget amendment be approved. This is Bob Gaylord from Lake Braddock Secondary.
Awesome. Do we have Okay. All right, guys, we have a motion and a second. You can vote if you are a PTA local unit officer or if you're on my board as a voting member. We're going by the honor system here. So go ahead and turn your mics on. All those in favor of amending the budget, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Any opposed, say no. Wonderful. The ayes have it. The budget amendment is approved. Thank you. I feel like I need a gavel. Okay. So we are going to move up to our meeting minutes. If Brett is on the line, she's our secretary. She can turn her camera on and wave and say hello.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks, Brett. We sent the meeting minutes out ahead of time. I'm not going to read them out loud. I'm not going to ask Brett to read them out loud. And we're not going to give you time to read them right now either because everybody wants to go. So hopefully you read the meeting minutes ahead of time. Does anybody have any corrections to the minutes? I'm going to ask one more time. Any corrections to the minutes? Okay, with no corrections, the minutes are approved as written. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so before we adjourn, I wanted to give you an update on a couple of things that are upcoming, and we did have a question about reflections that I will get to. Okay, so upcoming events. We have a fabulous webinar with Miss Jenna White. She's our Trauma Informed Care Network representative. We are partnering with Nova District PTA. She's going to offer a webinar called What to Expect When You're Returning to School. Very timely and relevant. That is going to be February 22nd at 7:30. We also have Virginia PTA Diversity and Inclusion via Education, or DIVE, webinar series. That is February 11th and 25th, March 8th and 30th from 7 to 8 o'clock. Diversity, inclusion, and equity is on everybody's mind, so this is very, very timely as well. Virginia PTA annual meeting. Did you guys know this is the 100th year of Virginia PTA? Super exciting. The theme for this year's meeting is celebrating the stars, which are all of you. What's really cool about this meeting is that it's free. So if you've never attended a Virginia PTA meeting before, this is an opportunity to do it for free, and it's virtual, so no traveling to Richmond. The meeting is March 15th through the 20th. It is not all day long. It's like an hour or two at a time. We encourage you to please register. Please, if nothing else, show up on the first night so that we can ensure we have quorum to elect our next officers. And Julie Shepard, who spoke earlier, is our slated VP of Advocacy, and Michelle Leet is VP of Training. So we want to show our support for our local people. Please, please, please sign up and participate. And SDC PTA General Membership Meeting, our last meeting of the year, will be May 5th. I already gave SEPTA their huge shout out. Congratulations again on receiving the National PTA Award. We did have a question in the chat about reflections. Jason Morgan, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I had to find the question on reflections, unless you saw it.
I didn't. I did a quick scan through, but maybe I either it wasn't sent to everyone or I just didn't see it.
Okay, I feel like it was something about when is the event gonna award ceremony, or is there gonna be a physical ceremony? I'm gonna keep on reading, but if you ask the reflections question and you're
at
here.
the last meeting, we recognized all the winners at the.
I found it. When is the Reflections PTA county level physical award presentations are planned? That's the question.
I will mail out physical awards. So
there we go.
And Kara, I can share that we're in the process of planning a district award ceremony for students, and it's probably going to be mid-March. But it will be a webinar, and we'll do recognitions of all the district winners. We just announced all of the district winners Sunday. So hopefully, you know, the ones who advance to district will be able to participate in the webinar. It'll be similar to what Jason did with the county council presentation, which was excellent, by the way. And perhaps some people maybe missed that, Jason, that, you know, they would have, you know, known that was your ceremony. So.
Okay, before we officially adjourn, are there any last minute questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, we got through it in what, like 11 minutes? That's fantastic. Okay, everyone.
Kara, I just wanted to
Yes.
remind everyone, if they want to participate in the annual meeting for the Virginia
Mhm.
and want to vote, make sure that their PTAs are in good standing.
Yes, please. Okay. All right, friends, it is time for us to depart. I appreciate you guys hanging out for an hour and a half. Hopefully it was helpful, and I will see you guys in May, if not sooner. Good night.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Sarah,
Thanks.
good night.
Good night.
Sarah.
Sarah.
You're welcome. Good night.